so that they are equipped to exercise robust oversight on their governments and the technological companies. What is necessary for parliamentarians is in their capacity building is to make them become abreast of the emerging digital technologies so that they are able to monitor trends and assess impacts of the digital technologies. In Zimbabwe, for example, a parliamentary committee of the future will be created in order to work with universities on AI research and development and assist parliamentarians to appreciate digital technological development trends, which should be understood by the parliamentarians. Overall, the message from the panel was clear, namely that parliamentarians have both opportunity and responsibility to ensure that the digital future serves humanity. In that context, on the role of Parliament in shaping the future of responsible AI in Malaysia this November 2025, to which parliamentarians are invited to participate. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mdenda. Colleagues, I will now go to panel 5, protecting and promoting the rights of persons in vulnerable situations towards comprehensive anti-discrimination action. The rapporteur is Ms. Angela Thokozile Didiza, Speaker of the National Assembly of the Republic of South Africa. Madame Didiza, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President, Tulia Axon. And maybe let me preface our report by thanking the Secretary General and the Secretariat for being wise enough that they are not discriminatory of those of us who were born before the latest technologies. I say so because they decided that our reports must be given on paper. And I'm saying latest technologies deliberately, because from writing on the sand, we then wrote with feathers, and from there we wrote with the pen. So these latest technologies have found us technologically advanced, maybe not to the state. Thank you very much, Madam. Yesterday I had the honor of participating in a timely and powerful panel discussion on the theme of protecting and promoting the rights of persons in vulnerable situations, with a focus on building comprehensive anti-discriminatory frameworks. The discussion brought together voices from across regions and institutions, including the Speaker of the Parliament of Malta and other speakers, the Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights, Ms. Nada Al-Nashif, Ms. Yvonne Apio, Bradley Amolo, the CEO of the Global Minority Parliamentarians Caucus and President of the Swiss Diversity Association. In my capacity as a Speaker of the National Assembly of South Africa, I was part of that panel. The panel explored both persistent and emerging challenges to the rights of persons in vulnerable situations, including racial minorities, LGBTQI+ persons, migrants, people with disabilities, and others facing intersection forms of discrimination. Participants underscored that despite international commitments and constitutional guarantees, more than 3/4 of countries still lack comprehensive national anti-discriminatory legislation. This legal vacuum significantly impedes both protection and accountability. Panel also emphasized the critical role of parliaments in adopting robust anti-discriminatory frameworks, providing oversight for their implementation, and ensuring access to justice. Several interventions highlighted that once laws are adopted, such laws can enjoy broad support, even in political diverse environments. At the same time, legal protection alone is not sufficient. Gaps in implementation, lack of enforcement mechanisms, and political reluctance remain recurring obstacles. Throughout the discussions, speakers highlighted the importance of anchoring anti-discriminatory efforts in the lived realities of affected communities. These realities include experiences of racial profiling, structural bias in service delivery, and invisibility in national data collection. The need for disaggregated data and improved monitoring mechanisms came up repeatedly in the discussions, with some participants calling for parliamentary-supported platforms to track progress and inform policy. The Commission also noted the growing gap between international norms and domestic practice, a gap that is being widened by the erosion of multilateralism and increasing resistance to human rights. Several concerns were raised about the use of social media to amplify harmful stereotypes and scapegoating narratives. Education and public engagement were identified as essential tools to promote inclusion and human dignity. Parliaments were called upon not only to legislate, but also to act as forums for public debate and social dialogue. Examples of effective community engagement and human rights education were shared, underscoring the need to build a culture of rights from ground up and to address the fears of those who feel threatened by diversity in a way that fosters understanding, promoting equality, and embracing diversity as a collective strength. Throughout the discussion, the need for partnerships with national human rights institutions, civil society, the private sector, and international bodies were emphasized, made to promote gender quotas and reserve parliamentary seats for marginalized.
Thank you so much, Madam. Thank you so much, Madam Didiza. Colleagues, I'm going to request all of you to clap for our rapporteurs. They have done a very wonderful job. Thank you so much, colleagues. At the same time, I'm also going to thank the Secretariat for the job well done of assisting our rapporteurs. That said, we go to now the adoption of the outcome document, which is another equally and probably very important segment. And as we move to the adoption of the high-level declaration from our conference, I am going to invite Ms. Sarah Najila Kugongelwa Amadila, Speaker of the National Assembly of Namibia, and Mr. Thomas Brezo, President of the National Council of Monaco, who are going to jointly introduce the high-level declaration to us. Madam Kugongelwa Amadila, you have the floor.
Madam President, members of the Presidium, distinguished delegates. We, the speakers of Parliament from around the world, have come together to take stock of the many crises that engulf the world today and to reaffirm the fundamental principles that must guide our future parliamentary action. As speakers, we can help inspire public debate, uphold democratic practices in our parliaments, and engage in parliamentary diplomacy to advance peace and understanding amongst people.
Nous constatons avec inquiétude que la situation dans le monde n'est guère meilleure
The
aujourd'hui.
situation in the world is quite worrying and has worsened since our last meeting in 2021. In our societies, we see that there is a general discomfort and anxiety.
Les progrès vers un monde pacifique et la vision transformatrice du programme de
Our progress towards a peaceful development and towards our 2030 goals are almost at a standstill, and we're confronted with a multitude of crises that seem to overlap.
We welcome the United Nations Pact for the Future of September 2024 as the latest effort by the global community to reconstitute multilateral order on stronger foundations, turbocharge the SDGs, and find common ground on the key issues of our time. We highlight the crucial role of parliamentary organizations and interparliamentary cooperation in global governance, in particular in supporting respect for the norms and principles of international law, peace building and sustaining peace, human rights, and sustainable development.
You read this?
I think I have a one.
You should have read this one. Right. You got to read this one.
Okay. Sorry. It's two language. Has fallen short in responding to all of these challenges and crises. Inspired by the IPU's values and principles, as well as by the outcomes of major United Nations processes, we conclude that building a more peaceful, just and prosperous world requires parliaments to engage in a series of key broad policy transitions. To complete the complete and consistent observance of international law and the promotion and protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms, the building of strong, transparent, and accountable institutions to maintain peace and justice, conflict prevention, as well as efforts to achieve comprehensive and sustainable security, combining both human security and common security. The peaceful, secure, open, and inclusive use of information and communication technologies, embedding the SDGs into national policies, strategies, and budgets, shifting the current economic paradigm to a more people-centered model based on cooperation, solidarity, inclusion, and sustainability, investing more in health, education, environmental preservation, and other public goods, advancing gender equality in law and in practice in all fields and at all levels, empowering young people, harnessing their perspectives and potential, valuing diversity in our societies, embracing the idea that global problems require collective action, reinforcing the practice of democracy with a strong emphasis on multilateral engagement and upholding democratic values. We welcome the United Nations Pact for the Future of September 2024 as the latest effort by the global community to reconstitute multilateral order on stronger foundations, turbocharge the SDGs, and find common ground on the key issues of our time. We highlight the crucial role of parliamentary organizations and interparliamentary cooperation in global governance, in particular in supporting respect for the norms and principles of international law, peace building and sustaining peace, human rights, and sustainable development.
Dans ce contexte, nous nous efforcerons de prendre...
Now, with this in mind, we will work to step up efforts to build stronger and more effective multilateralism that delivers for the people and the planet. Help advance effective reform of the United Nations and the global financial architecture for peaceful, just, and inclusive societies, achieving the SDGs and closing the financing gap for developing countries. Ensure a fair, open, non-discriminatory, multilateral trading system with the WTO at its core. Raise awareness within parliaments of major United Nations agreements such as the Pact for the Future. Encourage parliamentary oversight of the positions taken and agreements entered into by governments at the United Nations and other international fora. Share knowledge with the public at large of major United Nations agreements to support deeper national ownership and understanding of their goals.
Favoriser une participation plus active de nos parlements
ensure more active participation of our parliaments in key United Nations and other global processes, facilitate gender equality and greater representation of youth as well as people in vulnerable situations and other underrepresented groups in our parliaments. This includes ensuring that parliaments are safe environments free from discrimination and violence. Open our parliaments up to greater participation in the legislative process by a degree of different stakeholders. Strengthen trust and embrace hope for our common future through the IPU's work on interfaith dialogue. Pursue parliamentary diplomacy as a complement to governmental efforts. Recognize and promote science diplomacy as a fundamental tool for addressing the problems the world faces. Support the prevention of arms-inflicted human suffering and ensure parliamentary oversight of commitments to disarmament. Encourage parliamentary hearings that examine the root causes of the problems the world is facing. Actively participate in global efforts to regulate and harness the potential of emerging technologies. Support a plan of action to build digital competencies and ensure that Parliament is a modern institution equipped to shape our digital future. Promote inclusive and effective legislative processes to support a culture of mutual respect, dialogue, and understanding within parliamentary deliberations. And in parliaments, where one does not already exist, consider the establishment of a parliamentary committee of the future. We thank our hosts, Switzerland and the United Nations Office at Geneva, as well as the United Nations Secretary General and the President of the UNGA for their support of our conference. This has been another demonstration of the close partnership between the IPU and the United Nations. One of the keys to make...
For presenting our high-level declaration for this conference. Now, colleagues, I'm going to put it to question to you. Do I take it with those claps that we have all adopted this high-level declaration for the conference? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It is so decided. It is so decided, colleagues. I have seen the plug. Is it the plug? Yeah, the plug from Yemen, and I don't know what he would like to address me on. So, please. Hold on for the, hold on. Okay, go ahead.
Madam President, I wanted to take the floor before applauding and before clapping hands, because in fact, the cause of Palestine and Gaza, as well as the wars that the world is going through in Ukraine and Sudan, well, have not been really taken into consideration in that declaration, as if people who are being killed have no value, and as if our ethical responsibility and the principles of the United Nations and the international law and the justice and human, any medicine. So is it possible for the speakers of Parliament to come up with this declaration that gives no importance to the bloodshed, that gives no importance to what is happening in Gaza, that gives no importance to what is happening as collective genocide and deportation? This is a shame for humanity and for the IPU and for the speakers of Parliament who represent the people, those who are and should pay more attention to these issues and to these causes. So I call upon you to include into the declaration the issue of stopping the war, reaching a ceasefire, and entering the humanitarian aid and oil derivatives. Finding a solution to the Palestinian cause should be a priority in all the meetings. Why ignore it today here in this conference of speakers? What is happening in Palestine is a shame and is painful. We have to include this in the declaration, otherwise it would be unfair and unjust. And if we don't include this in this declaration, then this declaration would be a waste of time, and we would have neglected the international law and the values and principles of the United Nations. Thank you.
Colleagues, much as the declaration has already been adopted, but when I saw Yemen requesting the floor and I didn't know what he wanted to address me on, I had to give him the right to address me. But that said, colleagues, the text of this high-level declaration of the Sixth World Conference of Speakers has gone through all the processes of negotiations and also consultations for all the geopolitical groups, all countries and all parliaments. It was shared, and then we kept receiving the view. The preparatory committee has tried everything it can to ensure that the language that is in this text is a language that is compromised in the sense that it is a compromise for the whole parliamentary community of the world. So since it has already been adopted, I am going to, irrespectively, ask our colleague, the speaker from Yemen, to, when you go through the text on page 2, bullet 1 from the last bit is talking about building strong, transparent and accountable institutions to maintain peace and justice. This includes reforming judicial systems, and you can read all that, it's there. But also the other bullet that follows after that talks about prioritizing and investing in conflict prevention as well as redefining security.
I trust that the connections we have made these past few days will inspire us not only in international fora, but within our communities and institutions. As the Secretary General stated at the Summit of the Futures Action Days last September, a renewed multilateralism will not be built in a day or by governments alone. It will be fueled and carried forward by all of you and the groups that you represent. We have fought for ambition. Now let us fight for action together. As we celebrate the achievements of the Sixth World Conference of Speakers, I extend my thanks to the Interparliamentary Union for serving once again as a bridge between national action and international cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, I can see Iran requesting the floor, but let me say something, because the one issue has been raised by Yemen, and I have made a ruling about it. So as the rules go, if I have made a ruling, then the ruling has to stay in this case, unfortunately. But we have noted once again what has been said. But Iran, if you have anything else that you would like to raise, please, you are allowed to do that. You can do that in writing, and we will not, according to our rules that we have. So you're always welcome to submit the concerns in writing, and we shall note accordingly. That said, colleagues, I'm now going to call upon the IPU Secretary General, Mr. Martin Chugong, to address us.
Right Honourable President of the Interparliamentary Union, Dr. Tulia Axon, my esteemed colleague, Courtney Rattray, Chef de Cabinet of the United Nations Secretary General, Honourable Speakers of Parliament present here, fellow delegates, ladies and gentlemen. In my address at the inaugural session of this conference, I talked about the crisis of the multilateral system and how some people have come to the conclusion that the United Nations and other multilateral bodies, including the Interparliamentary Union, are in their dying throes. But looking at the number of speakers and other high-level parliamentarians who have gathered here in Geneva and spoken so passionately over the past 2 days about their priorities to build a better world, I am filled with a renewed hope. And in this context, I echo the words addressed to all of us by Michael Douglas at the inaugural session. We should hope. We should have renewed belief that there is a future for multilateralism, a belief that we are stronger together, that dialogue and diplomacy are better tools for solving problems than bullets and bombs, and that parliaments can and must play a key role in reinvigorating global cooperation. But parliaments are not just one piece, in a complex jigsaw. Earlier today, we threw open the doors of the conference to the wider stakeholder community in our interactive debate in this very chamber. Parliamentarians have long recognized the benefits of working together with fellow parliamentarians from around the world through the IPU, but now they are becoming increasingly aware that the world's problems can only be solved in partnership with other institutions and organizations. We acknowledge the preeminence of the United Nations in the multilateral architecture, and we are also seeing that it is important to work with other organizations to make the United Nations stronger. We need to work with civil society, the private sector, and other informal forums and coalitions, because it is only in this way that we can get the job done. The declaration that you have just approved, that was a few moments ago, sets out a roadmap for how parliaments can help revitalize the multilateral order through effective reform, greater involvement in existing and emerging processes, and strengthened oversight of the implementation of agreements and decisions. Over the past few days, we have heard many points of view, but we have also heard unity among speakers gathered here as to what they really want for the people. People of the world, they want peace, they want development, prosperity, justice, and equality. I hope, and there again, I echo the words of Michael Douglas, I hope that the United Nations in particular will heed that message as it embarks on ambitious reform for a truly revitalized and effective United Nations. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our hosts, the United Nations, but in particular Tatiana Valovaya, the Director General of the UN Office in Geneva, for offering us these fabulous premises for our deliberations. And of course, I want also to extend my heartfelt thanks to the Parliament and Government of Switzerland for welcoming speakers of Parliament from around the world to Geneva. I remain convinced that this conference is the jewel in the IPU's crown. And I hope, Michael Douglas, that our 7th Speakers Conference in 2030 will be an opportunity to celebrate genuine progress towards a more peaceful, fair, and prosperous world. I thank you.
Colleagues, now It is my pleasure to invite the President of the Interparliamentary Union to address you. Mr. Martin Chugong, Secretary General of the Interparliamentary Union, Mr. Rattray, Chef de Cabinet of the United Nations Secretary General, esteemed speakers of Parliament, dear colleagues, dear friends. As we bring this sixth World Conference of Speakers of Parliament to a close, I wish to express my deep gratitude to our hosts, the United Nations Office in Geneva, to the Swiss Parliament and other national authorities of Switzerland, to the members of the Preparatory Committee. And on this, I'm going to request them to stand if they are here, so that we all recognize the good work that they have done. The PrepCom members, please stand. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You have done a great job, and we all appreciate all the effort you have put into this. Colleagues, now to the IPU Secretariat. I know they are all over the place, but those who are in the house now, please stand and we recognize you. Starting with the Secretary General, please all stand and we recognize you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You have put a lot of effort into ensuring this conference is a success. And as a leader of this institution, I can't say better words than saying I am so, so proud of you for delivering to the letter of what we expected for this meeting. Thank you so much. Colleagues, I'm also going to now acknowledge all of you, sincerely, all the speakers who were able to travel long distances to come to attend this meeting physically. Thank you so much for coming, but at the same time, I would like to acknowledge the depth of your engagement, for the clarity of your convictions, and above all, for your continued support for a vision of a world where peace, justice, and prosperity are not privileges for few, but rights shared by all our peoples. Needless to say, we are very far away from achieving that vision. The high-level declaration we have just adopted describes a world in turmoil, marked by deepening inequalities, protracted conflicts, democratic backsliding, a climate emergency, and a very, very dangerous erosion of multilateralism. Therefore, colleagues and friends, my plea to each of you is very simple. Let the close of this World Conference of Speakers mark a moment where our efforts are redoubled. I would like to underline how truly unique these past 3 days have been. This conference was one of the rare moments when most of the world speakers came together under one roof. It offered us an invaluable space for exchanges, for diplomacy, and for genuine dialogue. It allowed us to listen directly to colleagues representing diverse political, ideological, religious, and geographical perspectives. Now, it is up to us, all of us, to make this count. The high-level declaration we have just adopted is, first and foremost, a call to responsibility. It urges us to work towards a more humane global order, one that places cooperation at the heart of policymaking, where gender equality is the norm, and where youth, people in vulnerable situations, and the underrepresented groups are fully included. Indeed, peace rests on more than treaties. It is sustained by justice, equity, inclusion, and the rule of law. Our high-level declaration also makes it clear that protecting our planet, our citizens, and our democracies cannot rest solely on the hands of the executive. As leaders of our parliaments, we are accountable. This responsibility begins with the laws we draft, the laws we pass, the debates we lead, and the budgets we approve. So, above all, our high-level declaration calls on us as parliamentarians and representatives of the people to see ourselves as architects of dialogue, stewards of inclusion, and agents of meaningful change. And I am pleased, colleagues, to note that the role of parliamentarians as agents of meaningful change has continued to grow within global governance and the United Nations. This is reflected both in our involvement in decision-making processes and in our strengthened partnership to implement global commitments, from the SDGs to the recently adopted UN Pact for the Future. Just last Friday, on 25th July 2025, the General Assembly adopted a new resolution on the interaction between the United Nations, national parliaments, and the Interparliamentary Union, marking the culmination of 25 years of steadily deepening engagement between the United Nations and parliaments. Over this time, the presence of our parliamentarians in major global governance meetings has expanded significantly. Our hearings at COP, our G20 Speakers Summit, commonly known as P20, and our active participation in the high-level political forum are only a few examples of this growing contribution. Dear colleagues, dear friends, and thus, after this 6th Global Summit of Speakers, let us move forward together, not as isolated speakers, but as a united parliamentary community. In a world gripped by fragmentation and division, we must be the voices that rebuild trust. And in the face of rising doubt, our actions must be the reason our peoples believe again in what a global community is capable of doing. Dear colleagues, dear friends, it can be done. Play your part. I thank you for listening. So now, before I bang the hammer to declare the conference closed, I am going to invite all of us to stand and close our meeting with our IPU anthem. Colleagues, while we all stand, I declare the 6th World Conference of Speakers held in 2025 officially closed.